The sky over Nevada turned bright at noon, brighter than it had ever been. People looked up, covering their eyes. It wasn't the sun. Something else now hung in the blue sky, a massive ship that gleamed like polished metal. Captain James Walker stood on the roof of the Earth Defense Force headquarters, squinting at the sight. His radio crackled with panicked voices from around the world. Similar ships had appeared over major cities everywhere. "Sir, what are your orders?" asked Lieutenant Ben Harris, standing nervously beside him. Walker took a deep breath. "We wait. If they wanted to attack, they would have done it already." The world watched and waited for 3 days. The ships hung silently in the sky, doing nothing. Then on the 4th day, they sent a message to every screen, radio, and communication device on Earth. "People of Earth, we come in peace. We are the Luminari. We wish to meet with your leaders." The United Nations called an emergency meeting. As head of the Earth Defense Force, Walker was ordered to attend. World leaders gathered in New York, all eyes on the empty chair that had been placed at the head of the table for their visitor. At exactly noon, the room filled with bright light. When it faded, a tall figure stood before them. The alien had pale blue skin that seemed to glow softly. Its forearms were long and thin, and its face had 3 large eyes that shone like flashlights. "I am Ambassador Bright of the Luminari," it said in perfect English. "We have watched your world for many years. We come to offer friendship." President Clark stood up. "We welcome you to Earth. May I ask why you have chosen now to reveal yourselves?" Ambassador Bright's eyes flickered, changing from white to yellow. "We have seen how your people struggle against the darkness. Like us, you fill your world with light. We believe we can help each other." Walker watched carefully. Something about the alien's words didn't feel right. After the meeting, the world leaders agreed to begin trade talks with the Luminari. Ambassador Bright offered advanced technology in exchange for what they called simple resources, mostly metals and water. Walker was assigned to work directly with the aliens as Earth's military liaison. He met with Ambassador Bright the next day at a newly established base outside Washington, D.C. "Captain Walker," said Bright, extending one of its 4 hands, "I look forward to our cooperation." Walker shook the alien's hand. It felt warm, almost hot. "Ambassador, I have many questions about your people." "As we have about yours," said Bright. "We find it interesting how your kind fears the darkness." Walker raised an eyebrow. "What makes you think we fear the dark?" The ambassador's eyes glowed brighter. "Your cities are never dark. You have lights everywhere all the time. You sleep with small lights. You tell stories to your children about monsters in the dark." Walker smiled. "That's not fear, Ambassador. That's just preference. Humans can see better with light." "Of course," said Bright, though Walker wasn't sure the alien believed him. "We Luminari understand. Our world has 3 suns. We never experience darkness." Over the next few weeks, Luminari ships landed in deserts around the world. They built bases that shone like small cities, visible from space. They never turned off their lights. Walker's friend, Dr. Tom Miller, was assigned to study Luminari technology. One evening he called Walker to his lab looking worried. "James, I've found something strange," said Miller, showing Walker a screen filled with data. "The Luminari bases are using enormous amounts of energy, more than they should need." "What for?" asked Walker. "I don't know," said Miller. "But I've also been studying their biology from the samples they provided. Look at this." Miller showed Walker a microscope image of Luminari cells. Their cells break down in darkness. They don't just prefer light. They need it to survive. Walker frowned. "They said their planet has 3 suns." "Yes, which means they never evolved to handle darkness," said Miller. "But there's something else. The materials they're taking from Earth, they're perfect for building energy storage systems. Really big ones." Walker thought about what this might mean. "Keep working on this, Tom. Don't share it with anyone else yet." 2 months after first contact, the Luminari invited a group of human scientists and officials to visit one of their ships. Walker went along, accompanied by a team that included Miller and a civilian energy expert named Lisa Green. The inside of the luminary ship was blindingly bright. Every surface glowed. Their alien guides took them through hallways filled with technology beyond human understanding. "This is amazing," said Green, examining what looked like a power system. "Their energy efficiency is incredible." As they toured the ship, Walker noticed something odd. There were no dark spaces anywhere, not even storage rooms or maintenance areas. Everything was lit up. "Ambassador," Walker asked during a break, "do your people ever turn off the lights?" Ambassador Bright's eyes flickered. "Why would we do that, Captain? Light is life." That night, Walker couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about what Miller had discovered and what he had seen on the ship. He got up and looked out his window at the glowing luminary base in the distance. His phone rang. It was Green. "Captain Walker, I need to show you something. Can you meet me at the observatory?" The observatory was on a hill outside the city. When Walker arrived, Green was looking through a powerful telescope. "Look at this," she said. Walker looked through the telescope at the luminary base. From this angle, he could see something the public couldn't. Huge devices being built behind the base, hidden from ground view. "What are those?" he asked. "Energy collectors," said Green. "Massive ones. I recognize the design from the ship. They're building them all around the world." Walker called Miller, who joined them an hour later with more disturbing news. "I've been monitoring their communications," said Miller. "They're using a frequency they think we can't detect. They keep mentioning something called the harvest." Walker felt a chill. "We need to get this information to the president." Next morning, Walker requested an emergency meeting with President Clark. He brought Miller and Green with him to present their findings. "Mr. President," said Walker, "we believe the luminary may not be here just for trade. They're building massive energy collection systems around the world. They need light to survive, and they're taking our resources to build energy storage." "What are you suggesting, Captain?" asked the president. "I believe they may be planning to take our energy resources, possibly all of them." President Clark looked troubled. "These are serious accusations. We need more proof before we risk our relationship with the luminary." As they left the White House, Walker felt frustrated. "We need to find solid evidence," he told Miller and Green. "Something they can't ignore." That night, Walker received an encrypted message from a military base near the main luminary settlement. It contained a video showing luminary ships unloading strange equipment under cover of darkness, the only time they seemed to work secretly. The equipment looked like weapons. Walker immediately called Miller and Green. "We need to act now. I think they're preparing for something big." As the three of them watched the video again, all their phones beeped with an emergency alert. They looked out the window to see the luminary ships over every major city suddenly glow brighter than ever before. Then, in an instant, every power grid on Earth went dark. The war had begun. Darkness fell across Earth like a heavy blanket. In cities that once glowed with millions of lights, people stumbled through black streets, confused and afraid. But high above, the luminary ships shone like artificial suns, casting eerie blue light over the land. Captain James Walker stared out the window of his now powerless office at the Earth Defense Force headquarters. Emergency generators had failed. Communications were down. The most advanced military in human history was suddenly blind and deaf. "They hit the power grid simultaneously," said Dr. Tom Miller, working frantically on a battery-powered laptop. "Every major station across the globe knocked out at once." Lisa Green paced the room, her face half hidden in shadow. "This was their plan all along. They studied us, saw how dependent we are on electricity, and took it away." Walker nodded grimly. "They think we'll panic without light. That's why they're keeping their ships bright, to show us they control the light now." The door burst open, and Lieutenant Harris rushed in. "Sir, we've got reports coming in. The luminary are landing troops in major cities. They're taking people." Walker's jaw tightened. "Taking them where?" "To their ships, sir. They're using some kind of light beam to paralyze anyone who resists." Outside, the blue glow from the luminary ships grew stronger. Walker watched as smaller, Vessels descended toward the city center. It was happening everywhere, he knew. A global invasion. They made a mistake, Walker said quietly. Miller looked up from his computer. What? The Luminari. They made a big mistake. Walker turned to face them, his eyes hard in the dim light. They think we're afraid of the dark. 3 days after the initial attack, Walker led what remained of his team through underground tunnels beneath the city. They moved silently, using night vision goggles salvaged from a military storage facility. Above ground, Luminari patrols swept the streets with powerful searchlights, capturing any humans they found. The president and most of the government have been taken, Harris reported as they reached a makeshift command center in an old subway station. But resistance is forming everywhere. Walker nodded. Around him, soldiers and civilians worked together, setting up equipment by the light of a few carefully shielded lanterns. They had discovered that the Luminari could detect even small light sources from a distance. What's our status? Walker asked. Bad but not hopeless, replied Green, who had become his operations officer. The Luminari control most major cities, but they're struggling with rural areas, too spread out to cover everything. Miller approached carrying a strange device. I've been studying the pieces of Luminari technology we captured. Their weakness is more significant than we thought. He placed the device on a table, part of a Luminari soldier's armor. This isn't just protection, it's a life support system. They literally cannot survive without constant light exposure. Their cellular structure breaks down in darkness. Walker leaned forward, examining the armor. So their suits generate light for them? Yes, said Miller, but they need to recharge regularly. That's why they return to their ships every few hours. A slow smile spread across Walker's face. Then we fight at night, in the darkest places we can find. Over the next weeks, Walker's resistance group grew. They established a network of underground bases connected by old tunnels, sewers, and subway lines. They moved only at night, and only in darkness. The Luminari seemed confused by this strategy. They had expected humans to seek out light, to huddle, under the glow of their ships for safety. Instead, humans embraced the shadows, becoming invisible to their invaders. 1 month after the invasion began, Walker led his first major counterattack. The target, a Luminari processing center where captured humans were being held. They're keeping them in these light cages, explained a scout who had escaped capture. They think the bright light will keep us from attempting rescue. Walker's team moved through the city under cover of a moonless night. The streets above were patrolled by Luminari soldiers in glowing armor, but the humans stayed in the sewers until they reached their target. The processing center had once been a sports stadium. Now it glowed like a small sun, surrounded by Luminari guards. Inside, thousands of humans were held in pens flooded with harsh light. Remember, Walker told his team, take out their armor first. Without their personal light source, they can't function in darkness. The attack began with precision. Human snipers using modified rifles fired special darts that shorted out the Luminari light armor. As each alien suit failed, they collapsed in the darkness, their bodies unable to maintain cohesion without light. In the confusion, Walker's main force stormed the facility. They wore dark clothing and moved like shadows between the Luminaries. Light beams. The aliens, unable to see well in low light, fired wildly. Cut the power to the holding pens. Walker shouted into his radio as he led a team toward the main generator. The Luminari commander, a taller being with 6 arms instead of 4, stood in their path. Its armor glowed brighter than the others, casting harsh shadows. Your species will submit, it said, its 3 eyes blazing. Light is strength, darkness is death. Walker raised his weapon. You've got that backwards. He fired, hitting the commander's armor with an electromagnetic pulse. The light flickered and died. The alien fell to its knees, its blue skin already beginning to crack and dissolve in the darkness. Impossible, it gasped. You fear the dark. No, said Walker. We master it. With the commander down, Walker's team reached the generator and destroyed it. The stadium plunged into darkness, and the human prisoners were quickly led out through underground tunnels by rescue teams wearing night vision. It was their first major victory, but the war had only begun. 2 months into the occupation, the Luminari changed tactics. They launched orbital platforms that could direct concentrated light at any target, turning night into day for miles around. They began scorching the earth around cities, destroying forests and fields to eliminate potential hiding places. "They're getting desperate," said Green during a strategy meeting in their underground base. "They didn't expect this level of resistance." Miller nodded. "They've also increased their resource extraction. They're tearing apart power plants and dams, taking everything they can use to generate and store energy." "For what purpose?" asked Walker. "I think they're planning something big," said Miller. "The amount of energy they're collecting goes beyond what they need for their ships and troops." That night, a messenger arrived from another resistance cell with disturbing news. The Luminari had begun testing a new weapon, a device that could generate a pulse of light so intense it vaporized everything in its path. "They tested it in the desert," said the messenger. "Created a glass crater half a mile wide." Walker studied the map spread before him. The war was reaching a critical point. Humanity had adapted to fighting in darkness with remarkable speed. Their night operations were becoming more effective, and the Luminari couldn't be everywhere at once. But this new weapon changed things. If the Luminari decided to simply burn the planet rather than conquer it, there would be nowhere to hide. "We need to take the fight to them," Walker said finally. "Not just here on the ground, but up there." He pointed upward, toward the Luminari, ships that still hung in the sky. Miller looked skeptical. "How? We can't even get past their ground troops." Walker turned to Green. "You said they're gathering resources for something big. What if we let them gather something else, something they don't expect?" Green's eyes widened as she caught his meaning. "You want to infiltrate their collection centers?" Walker nodded. "We need to get aboard one of their ships, find out what they're planning, and stop it." As they discussed the dangerous mission, an alarm sounded. A scout rushed in. "Captain, the Luminari are broadcasting on all frequencies they can access. They're making an announcement to all humans." Walker hurried to the communications room, where a salvaged radio was picking up the transmission. The voice of Ambassador Bright filled the room, but now it held no pretense of friendship. "People of Earth, your resistance is futile and misguided. The Luminari offer you one final chance. Come into the light willingly, and you may live as our servants. Remain in darkness, and we will burn your world to ash." Walker looked at them, determined faces around him. In just 2 months, these people had learned to fight an enemy from the stars. They had turned what the Luminari thought was a weakness, humankind's fear of darkness, into their greatest strength. "Send a response," Walker ordered. "What should it say, sir?" asked the communications officer. Walker smiled grimly. "Tell them, we'll see you in the dark." 3 months into the war, Earth had become a world divided between light and shadow. The Luminari controlled circles of harsh brightness around their bases, while humans claimed the darkness between. It was not the victory the aliens had expected when they first attacked. Captain James Walker stood in a hidden cave entrance looking out at the night sky. Above him, the Luminari's orbital light platforms created artificial day over major cities. But here, deep in the mountains, darkness still ruled. "Captain, they're ready for you," said Lieutenant Harris, emerging from the tunnel behind him. Walker nodded and followed Harris into what had become humanity's largest resistance base. The natural cave system stretched for miles underground, housing thousands of fighters and refugees. Humans had quickly learned that the deeper they went, the safer they were from the Luminari. In the main chamber, a crowd had gathered around, a makeshift stage. As Walker walked to the front, he saw familiar faces: Dr. Miller, Lisa Green, and representatives from resistance groups around the world. Some he knew only through radio communications until now. "Welcome, all of you," Walker said, his voice echoing in the cavern. "For those I haven't met in person, I'm Captain Walker. 3 months ago, the Luminari thought they would find an easy victory. They believed that by taking our power, our light, they would break us." He paused, looking at the determined faces before him. They were wrong. A cheer went up from the crowd. Walker raised his hand for silence. But the war is far from over. The Luminari have built light platforms in orbit. They're scorching our land from above, and now they've threatened to burn our world to ash if we don't surrender. Miller stepped forward, carrying a strange device. This is why we've gathered you all here. We've made a breakthrough. He placed the device on a table. It looked like a small backpack with several attachments. We call it the Shadow Suit, Miller explained. Using what we've learned about Luminari technology, we've created something that absorbs light rather than reflecting it. To demonstrate, he put on the backpack and pressed a button. Immediately, the area around him darkened as if light was being pulled into the device. The Luminari use light not just for seeing, but for their weapons and life support, Miller continued. This technology absorbs that light, weakening them while keeping us hidden. Walker nodded. With these shadow suits, we can approach their bases even in daylight. But we need more than just new technology. We need a new strategy. He unrolled a map on the table. The Luminari have a central command ship over what used to be Geneva. Our intelligence suggests this is where they're coordinating their global operations. It's also where they're developing their planet killer weapon. Green pointed to several locations on the map. We've identified weak points in their defense network. Their ships need to open light collection panels every 12 hours to gather solar energy. When those panels are open, parts of their shields must be lowered. We're going to hit them when they're feeding, said Walker. Multiple teams striking different targets simultaneously, but our main target is this command ship. A woman stepped forward, Commander Diaz from the South American Resistance. My teams have been monitoring their orbital platforms. We've found a way to temporarily blind their sensors. Good, said Walker. We'll need every advantage. As the meeting continued, plans were made and teams assigned. The attack would be the largest coordinated human effort since the invasion began. Everything depended on precise timing and complete surprise. Later that night, Walker stood with Miller in a smaller chamber where the scientist had set up his lab. There's something else, Miller said quietly, making sure they were alone. Something I didn't want to share with the larger group yet. He showed Walker a series of calculations. The energy readings from the Luminary command ship are off the charts. Whatever weapon they're building, it's not just designed to attack Earth. Walker frowned. What do you mean? I think they're building something that can affect our sun, said Miller. A device that could potentially harvest its energy on a massive scale or even alter it somehow. The implications hit Walker like a physical blow. They could create permanent daylight, or worse, drain our sun until it dies. Miller nodded grimly. Either way, hiding in caves won't save us then. Then we have no choice, said Walker. We move tomorrow night. The next day was spent in final preparations. Shadow suits were distributed to the assault teams. Weapons were checked and rechecked. Every fighter knew their role in the complex plan. As sunset approached, Walker addressed the teams one last time. The Luminari think they understand humans, he told them. They think we fear the dark, that we're weak without our technology. Tonight we show them how wrong they are. He looked at the determined faces around him. Humanity didn't become the dominant species on Earth by fearing the night. Our ancestors hunted in darkness when they needed to. They navigated by stars when there were no maps. And when fire was invented, it wasn't just to push back the dark. It was to master it, to use it on our terms. Walker strapped on his own shadow suit. Tonight we are those ancestors again. Tonight we hunt. As night fell, resistance teams moved into position around the world. Using underground tunnels, mountain paths, and waterways, they approached Luminari, strongholds undetected. Walker led the primary assault team toward the Geneva base where the Luminary command ship hovered. They moved through forest that had been partially burned by the aliens' scorching tactics, the charred trees providing additional cover. Command ship in sight, whispered Harris as they reached the edge of the forest. Ahead of them, the massive, alien vessel hung in the air, surrounded by a bubble of intense light. Walker checked his watch. 3 minutes until they opened their collection panels. The team waited in tense silence. Walker could feel his heart pounding. Everything depended on the next few hours. Panels opening, said Green, watching through specialized binoculars. Their shield is fluctuating. Walker gave the signal. Activate shadow suits, move out. As one, the team pressed the activation buttons on their suits. The darkness around them deepened as the technology began absorbing light. To the Luminary's sensors, they would appear as nothing more than moving shadows, if they were detected at all. They raced across the open ground toward the base. Luminary guards stood at regular intervals, their light armor glowing. But their gaze was focused outward, not down at the ground where the humans ran in the shadows between light beams. The first sign that something was wrong came when Walker's radio crackled. "Captain, this is Diaz. Something's happening. The orbital platforms are changing position." Walker paused, looking up. The bright spots in the sky were indeed moving, aligning in a pattern. "They know we're coming," he realized with sudden certainty. "Everyone speed up, we need to reach the ship now." As if in response to his words, the ground around them suddenly blazed with light. Hidden projectors activated, eliminating every shadow. "They've prepared for us," shouted Harris as Luminary soldiers appeared, surrounding them. Walker made a split-second decision. "Plan B, everyone scatter." The team broke in different directions, using the shadow suits to absorb as much light as possible, but the Luminary had anticipated this move. Light beams tracked them, keeping them illuminated. Walker ran toward the main facility beneath the command ship. If they couldn't reach the ship directly, maybe they could find another way in. Behind him, he heard the sounds of fighting as his team engaged the Luminary soldiers. A blinding flash made him stumble. He looked up to see the orbital platforms aligning, focusing their beams on a single point. The combined light was so intense it cut through clouds, creating a pillar of radiance that struck the top of the command ship. "That's it," Walker realized. "They're powering up their weapon." With renewed determination, he charged toward the base. If he couldn't stop them from above, he would stop them from below. A group of Luminari blocked his path, their weapons raised. Walker activated his shadow suit to maximum power. The area around him plunged into absolute darkness, confusing the light-dependent aliens. In that moment of confusion, Walker attacked. His training made him lethal even in pitch blackness. One by one, the Luminari fell, their armor cracking as the darkness invaded their bodies. Walker reached the main entrance to the facility. Inside, he could see more Luminari rushing about in panic. The absence of light created by his shadow suit was spreading like a physical presence. "Sir," Harris's voice came through his radio. "The other teams are reporting success. Bases worldwide are under attack." Walker smiled grimly. "Good. Now we just need to stop that weapon." He stepped into the facility, darkness flowing around him, like a cloak. The war had entered a new phase. The humans weren't just fighting back anymore. They were bringing the dark to the creatures of light, and the Luminari were beginning to fear it. The inside of the Luminari base was a maze of glowing corridors. Captain James Walker moved through them like a living shadow, his shadow suit absorbing the light around him. Where he walked, darkness followed. Luminary technicians fled at his approach, their blue skin cracking in the sudden darkness. Walker had never seen them so afraid. For a species that lived in constant light, his ability to bring darkness was terrifying. "Miller, I'm inside the base," Walker said into his radio. "Where am I going?" Back in the mobile command center, Dr. Tom Miller studied a rough map they had pieced together from spy reports. "The main control room should be at the center of the facility, but be careful. Our readings show massive energy building up." Walker made his way deeper into the base. Alarms blared, and announcements in the Luminary language echoed through the corridors. He couldn't understand the words, but the panicked tone was clear enough. As he turned a corner, 5 Luminary soldiers appeared, their armor glowing brighter than usual. They had adjusted their equipment to counteract his shadow suit. "Humans cannot win," said the lead soldier, its 3 eyes narrowed. "Light will always defeat darkness." Walker didn't waste time arguing. He ducked behind a pillar as the soldiers fired beams of concentrated light. The shadow suit absorbed some of the energy, but he could feel heat penetrating to his skin. Pulling a special grenade from his belt, Walker activated it and threw it at the soldiers. The device exploded with a soft thump, releasing a cloud of black particles that clung to the Luminari armor, blocking their light projectors. The effect was immediate. As their personal light sources dimmed, the aliens began to convulse, their skin flaking away in the darkness. Walker turned away from the sight. Even after months of war, he took no pleasure in the way the Luminari died. Walker update came, Lisa Green's voice over the radio. Our teams have breached bases worldwide, but the orbital platforms are still channeling energy to the command ship. Whatever they're planning, it's still happening. I'm moving as fast as I can, Walker replied, continuing toward the center of the facility. He reached a massive door marked with luminary symbols. Unlike the rest of the base, this door was dark metal with no light elements. Walker recognized the material. It was the same energy-absorbing alloy humans had developed for the shadow suits. They created their own darkness tech, he muttered. They're learning. No time for subtlety. Walker planted explosives on the door and took cover. The blast echoed through the corridors, and when the smoke cleared, the door hung open on damaged hinges. Beyond was the largest room Walker had seen inside a Luminari structure. It stretched upward for several floors, with a central column of pulsing light that reached from floor to ceiling. Around this column, dozens of Luminari technicians worked at control stations. At the far end of the room stood Ambassador Bright, now wearing elaborate armor covered in light-emitting crystals. The ambassador turned as Walker entered, its eyes flashing from yellow to red. "Captain Walker," said Bright. "You are too late." Walker stepped forward, the shadow suit creating a bubble of darkness around him. "What are you doing, Bright? What weapon are you powering up?" "Not a weapon, Captain." The ambassador's voice was calm. "A salvation. Your sun is inefficient. It wastes energy, projecting light in all directions. We will focus it, harness its full potential." "By doing what?" "By surrounding it with our collection platforms. Your planet will receive more light than ever before. Constant, perfect light. No more night. No more shadows for humans to hide." And Walker understood now. "You're not trying to destroy the sun, you're trying to cage it." "For the benefit of all," said Bright. "The Luminari will thrive in the constant light, and humans will have no darkness to hide in. In time you will adapt. The strong will survive. And those who don't adapt?" The ambassador made a gesture that might have been a shrug. "Evolution has always had its costs." Walker looked at the column of light. Energy from the orbital platforms was being collected, building toward some critical threshold. Once released, it would somehow affect Earth's sun itself. "I can't let you do this," said Walker. "You cannot stop it," replied Bright. "The process has begun. In moments, the final sequence will activate." Walker didn't waste more time talking. He charged forward, pushing his shadow suit to maximum power. The darkness spread out from him, like a wave engulfing control stations. Luminary technicians screamed as their light sources failed. Ambassador Bright stood firm, protected by its advanced armor. "Your primitive technology cannot affect me, Captain. My armor contains power, sources from a dozen suns." Walker reached for his weapon, but Bright moved with surprising speed. A beam of concentrated light struck Walker in the chest, sending him flying backward. The shadow suit absorbed most of the energy, but he felt searing pain where the beam penetrated. "Humans are remarkable," said Bright, approaching slowly. "We expected you to surrender when we took your light. Instead, you embraced the darkness we thought you feared. A fascinating adaptation." Walker struggled to his feet, his shadow suit flickering as it tried to recover from the damage. "We never feared the dark, Ambassador. We just hadn't needed to use it as a weapon until you arrived." His radio crackled. "Walker!" Miller's voice was urgent. "The energy readings are off the charts. Whatever they're doing, it's happening now." The column of light in the center of the room pulsed more rapidly. Walker could feel the energy building like the air before a lightning strike. "Too late, Captain," said Bright, its eyes gleaming. "The future will be bright." But Walker had one last card to play. During the months of war, Miller had developed more than just the shadow suits. He had created something they called a darkness bomb, a device that could temporarily neutralize all light-based technology in a wide area. Walker had been saving it for an emergency. This qualified. He pulled the small black sphere from a protected pocket. Ambassador Bright's eyes widened in recognition. "That device cannot stop the process," said the ambassador, but there was uncertainty in its voice. "Let's find out," replied Walker, and activated the bomb. For a moment, nothing happened. Then darkness, complete, absolute darkness, spread outward from the sphere. It wasn't just an absence of light, it was something active, as if the darkness itself was alive. The luminary in the room screamed as their light sources failed. Ambassador Bright's elaborate armor flickered and went dark. The central column of energy sputtered and collapsed. Walker, prepared for the effect, had closed his eyes. When he opened them, his night vision equipment showed chaos. The luminari were disintegrating in the darkness, their bodies unable to maintain cohesion without light. Ambassador Bright had collapsed to its knees, but its advanced armor was providing some protection. Its voice, when it spoke, was weak. "What have you done?" "Introduced you to true darkness," said Walker. "Not just the absence of light, but the neutralization of light itself. Your scientists never considered that darkness could be an active force, not just a passive state." The ambassador's body was beginning to crack, blue skin flaking away despite its armor's protection. "This changes nothing. The command has been sent. The platforms will complete their mission." Walker tapped his radio. "Green, what's happening with the orbital platforms?" "Something amazing," she replied, her voice awed. "They're failing, Captain. All of them, around the world. They're just shutting down." Walker understood what had happened. The darkness bomb had not just affected the base. Its energy had traveled along the connection to the orbital platforms, disrupting their systems as well. "It's over, Ambassador," said Walker. "Your light show is cancelled." Bright's body was almost gone now, but its three eyes still glowed faintly. "You think you've won, but you've only delayed inevitable. Light is life, Captain. You cannot survive in darkness forever." "We don't need to," replied Walker. "Unlike you, we thrive in both." As the ambassador disintegrated completely, Walker contacted his team. "The central facility is secure. What's our status worldwide?" Reports came in quickly. Across the globe, resistance teams had successfully breached luminary bases. The darkness, bombs deployed simultaneously, had devastated the aliens' forces. Without their light sources, the luminari were helpless. "Their ships are retreating," reported Lieutenant Harris. "Rising into orbit. Those that still can, anyway." Walker made his way back through the now dark corridors of the base. The surviving luminari had fled, leaving their equipment behind. Human scientists would study it for years, learning the secrets of their light-based technology. Outside, dawn was breaking. Real sunlight, not the harsh artificial glare of the luminary ships, warmed Walker's face. He removed his damaged shadow suit and looked up at the sky. A few luminari vessels were visible, rising toward space. "Let them go," he said when Harris suggested shooting them down. "They can take a message back to their world." "What message is that, sir?" asked Harris. Walker smiled, watching the ships disappear into the morning sky. "That humans don't fear the dark. We master it." Around the world, similar scenes played out. Humans emerged from their underground bases and night hiding places, reclaiming the surface. The war wasn't completely over. Some luminary remained, cut off from their ships and fighting desperately. But the tide had turned decisively. That evening, Walker stood with Miller and Green on a hillside, watching the first natural sunset many had seen in months. "What do you think they'll do?" asked Green. "Will they come back with more ships, more weapons?" Walker considered the question, as darkness fell and stars appeared overhead. "I don't think so. They fundamentally misunderstood humans. They thought by taking away our light they'd break us. Instead, they taught us to weaponize the dark." Miller nodded. "They've never faced a species that could adapt so quickly. That must have been terrifying for them." As night fully arrived, lights began to appear in the distance. Not the harsh glare of luminary technology, but the warm glow of human cities coming back to life. Power was being restored, one grid at a time. "We should be ready, though," said Walker. "Just in case. We'll need defenses in space, early warning systems." Green smiled. "And we should probably keep developing those shadow suits. They might come in handy again." Walker nodded, watching the stars. Somewhere out there was the Luminari homeworld, a planet with 3 suns and no natural darkness. A world whose people had never learned what humans had always known, that darkness was not something to fear but something to understand and, when necessary, use. "The night is ours again," he said softly. "Let's make sure it stays that way." 1 year after the Luminari invasion, Earth was healing. Cities had been rebuilt, power grids restored. In parks and town squares, memorials stood to those lost in what people now called the Light War. But alongside the grief, there was pride. Humanity had faced an enemy from the stars and prevailed. Captain James Walker, now General Walker, stood at the window of his office in the New Earth Defense Force headquarters. Below, workers were installing the final pieces of a massive detection system designed to provide early warning of any future alien threats. "The last of the orbital defense platforms are online," reported Lisa Green, now his chief of operations. "Any ship approaching Earth will be detected long before it reaches orbit." Walker nodded. "And the shadow technology?" "Dr. Miller's team has made incredible progress," said Green. "We've incorporated it into all our defense systems. If the Luminari return, they'll find us much better prepared." Walker turned away from the window. On his desk sat reports from around the world. The last pockets of Luminari resistance had been eliminated 3 months ago. The aliens who couldn't escape had fought to the end, unable to surrender to a fate in darkness. "Any word from our deep space monitoring stations?" he asked. Green shook her head. "Nothing yet. No sign of Luminari activity near our solar system." Walker wasn't surprised. The retreating Luminari ships had been damaged, their numbers greatly reduced. It would take time for them to return to their homeworld, longer still to mount another invasion, if they ever did. His phone rang, the secure line that connected directly to the president's office. "General Walker speaking." "General, we've received a transmission," said the president. "You need to see this immediately." Walker's heart raced. "Luminari?" "Yes, but not what we expected. A ship has appeared at the edge of our solar system. Just one, and it's broadcasting on all frequencies. They're asking to speak with you specifically." Within the hour, Walker was in the White House Situation Room along with Dr. Miller, Green, and the highest-ranking government officials. On the main screen, a grainy image showed a single luminary vessel holding position near Jupiter. "The message repeats every 10 minutes, explained the communications officer. "They say they come in peace as representatives of a new luminary government." "Play it," ordered the president. The screen flickered, and a familiar face appeared. Ambassador Bright. But this Bright looked different. The blue skin was paler, and the 3 eyes didn't glow as brightly as before. "People of Earth, this is Ambassador Bright of the new Luminary Consensus. I request permission to approach Earth for peaceful negotiations. I wish to speak with General James Walker regarding terms of coexistence." The message ended, repeating, after a brief pause. "It's a trap," said the Secretary of Defense immediately. "They're scouting for a second invasion." Walker studied the image carefully. "I'm not so sure. Look at Bright. Something's different. And why send just one ship?" Miller adjusted his glasses. "Our scans show their ship is significantly less powerful than the invasion fleet. It has minimal weapons and appears to be running on reduced power." "What do you think, General?" asked the president. Walker considered for a moment. "I think we should hear what they have to say. Under strict conditions, of course." 2 days later, a small luminary shuttle descended to a remote airfield in the Nevada desert. Earth defense systems tracked every inch of its approach, weapons locked on and ready. The area had been evacuated for miles around with only military personnel remaining. Walker waited on the tarmac with a small team, all wearing the latest version of shadow suits as a precaution. The shuttle landed softly, its engines quieter than the invasion craft had been. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then a door opened, and Ambassador Bright emerged alone. Walker was immediately struck by how different the alien looked. Its skin was not only paler but had patches of dark blue, almost purple. Its movements were slower, more deliberate. "General Walker," said Bright, stopping at a respectful distance. "Thank you for agreeing to meet." "You said you wanted to discuss coexistence," said Walker. "I'm listening." Bright gestured to the shuttle. "May we speak inside? There are things I need to show you." After a careful security scan, Walker agreed. Inside the shuttle, the lighting was much dimmer than any luminary craft he had seen during the war. Bright moved to a control panel and activated a screen. "After our defeat, those of us who returned to our homeworld faced chaos," explained the ambassador. "Our government collapsed. 3 factions emerged. Those who wanted to rebuild and attack Earth again, those who wished to abandon this sector of space entirely, and a third group, my group." Images appeared on the screen, the luminary homeworld, a planet bathed in the constant light of 3 suns. "What made your group different?" asked Walker. "We learned from humans," said Bright. "For generations we believed darkness was death, that no advanced species could thrive without constant light. You proved us wrong." The screen showed Luminari, with the same darker patches as Bright. They were working in areas of reduced light, using equipment that looked partially of Earth design. "These are adapted Luminari," explained Bright. "We began experimenting with controlled darkness exposure. Painful at first, but those who survived developed the ability to endure low light conditions, a biological adaptation we never thought possible." Walker was stunned. "You deliberately exposed yourselves to darkness. Why?" "Because we saw the future," said Bright simply. "Our civilization developed in a rare star system with 3 suns. We evolved without experiencing night. This made us powerful in some ways, but vulnerable in others." More images appeared, star maps showing thousands of systems. "Most habitable worlds experience darkness," continued Bright. "If we cannot adapt to it, we are limited to a tiny fraction of possible worlds. Our society would remain forever confined, vulnerable to extinction if anything happened to our home system." Walker began to understand. "So this isn't about Earth at all. You're thinking much bigger." "Yes," admitted Bright. "Earth showed us our weakness, but it also showed us a possible solution. If some luminary can adapt to live in both light and darkness, as humans do, our species has a future among the stars." "And the other factions?" asked Walker. "The ones who want to attack us again?" Bright's eyes dimmed slightly. "There is civil war on our world. My faction, the adaptationists, currently hold the most territory, but the fight continues. I came to propose an alliance." Walker raised an eyebrow. "An alliance? After you invaded our planet and tried to enslave us?" "I understand your skepticism," said Bright, "but consider the advantages. We offer our light technology, far advanced beyond Earth science. In return, we ask for help developing darkness adaptation techniques and sanctuary for those luminary who choose to adapt." "You want to live on Earth?" "Not exactly," said Bright. "We seek permission to establish a small colony on your moon. The regular cycle of 2 weeks of sunlight followed by 2 weeks of darkness would be perfect for our adaptation program. In return, we would help build lunar defenses and share all our knowledge." Walker was silent for a long moment. The proposal was unexpected but intriguing. A peaceful luminary faction could be a powerful ally, especially if other hostile aliens existed in the galaxy. "I'll need to discuss this with our leaders," he said finally. "But first, I have a question. Why did you come to me specifically? Why not approach our government directly?" Bright's 3 eyes focused on Walker intensely. "Because you understand both sides of this conflict. You fought us in darkness, but you did not destroy us out of hatred or fear. You let our ships leave. You showed what humans call mercy. Walker remembered that moment, watching the defeated luminary ships rising into the dawn sky. And there's one more thing, added Bright, something we discovered when analyzing the shadowsuit technology. The ambassador activated another screen, showing complex diagrams of human and luminary cellular structures. The darkness adaptation we're undergoing. It changes our biology fundamentally. Those who successfully adapt develop cellular structures remarkably similar to human cells in certain ways. We believe there may be compatibility. What kind of compatibility? Asked Walker, suspicious. Shared environments, medical treatments, perhaps even more, said Bright. Your scientists theorize that light and darkness are not merely conditions but fundamental forces that can be harnessed. They were right, and that discovery opens possibilities neither of our species has imagined. Walker studied the alien who had once been his enemy. The changes in Bright were obvious, not just physical adaptations to darkness, but a different way of thinking. You've changed, Ambassador. As has your world, replied Bright. We both learned from the war. The question is, what will we do with that knowledge? 3 days later, in a historic broadcast watched by billions around the world, General Walker stood beside Ambassador Bright as the President announced the Luna Accord, a treaty establishing a small luminary research colony on the far side of the moon with strict oversight and security protocols. Not everyone was happy with the decision. Protests erupted in cities across Earth. Many humans could not forgive the luminary for the war, could not trust the aliens who had once tried to conquer them. Walker understood their feelings but supported the accord. As he explained to a skeptical Lisa Green, we need to think beyond just Earth now. The universe is bigger and stranger than we imagined. The luminary won't be the last aliens we encounter. 6 months later, Walker visited the lunar colony. Through reinforced windows, he watched as luminary scientists worked alongside human researchers, studying the effects of darkness adaptation. The aliens still glowed faintly, but now they moved comfortably in areas of reduced light that would have killed them a year earlier. Dr. Miller joined him at the window. Remarkable progress. Some of the second-generation adapters can now survive complete darkness for up to an hour. And the light technology transfers? Asked Walker. Revolutionary, said Miller enthusiastically. Their solar collection methods are centuries beyond ours. The new panels we've developed together are already providing clean energy to half of Earth. Walker nodded, watching a young luminary working with a human scientist. The alien's skin showed extensive dark patches, signs of successful adaptation. They call themselves Children of the Night now, said Miller. The adapted ones. Poetic, isn't it? Walker smiled slightly. They're learning more than just how to survive darkness. As he prepared to return to Earth, Ambassador Bright approached him one last time. General Walker, before you leave, I have something to ask. Something personal. Walker waited, curious. When you first entered our base during the final battle, bringing darkness with you, did you know we would die in it? Did you intend our destruction? Walker considered the question carefully. I knew darkness was lethal to your kind, but I also hoped some would survive, would learn, would adapt. Bright's eyes dimmed in what Walker had come to recognize as a thoughtful expression. The universe is mostly darkness, you know, said the ambassador. Between stars there is only void. We Luminari feared that void, built our entire civilization around denying it existed. But you humans, you looked into the darkness and saw possibility. Walker thought about this as his shuttle returned to Earth. Below him, the night side of the planet came into view, a canvas of darkness painted with the lights of human cities. Bright's words echoed in his mind. Humans had never feared the dark, not really. They had respected it, used it when needed, illuminated it when desired. That balance, the understanding that both light and darkness had their place, had saved humanity when the Luminari attacked. And now, it might save the Luminari too. As Earth grew larger in the viewport, Walker watched the Terminator line, that moving boundary between day and night that circled the planet endlessly. Light and darkness not in conflict, but in eternal dance. Perhaps that was humanity's greatest lesson to teach the stars.
The Void Shadows Guild Hall fell silent as Servac entered the chamber. His 8-foot frame moved with silent grace despite the ceremonial armor that covered his pale blue skin. The most feared assassin in the Galactic Concordat rarely called full meetings, and when he did, it meant something big was coming. "We have received a contract," Servac announced, his voice soft yet carrying to every corner of the room. "The payment offered is 5 times our standard fee." Murmurs spread through the gathered assassins. Each member of the Void Shadows had killed dozens, if not hundreds, across countless worlds. They were the elite, the untouchable, the shadows that brought death to any target regardless of protection. Tilara, Servac's most trusted killer, stepped forward. Her crimson eyes narrowed with suspicion. What kind of target demands such payment? Servac touched a control panel, and a hologram appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed a bipedal species with varied skin tones, sparse fur on their heads, and surprisingly plain features. They looked fragile compared to most species in the Concordat. "These are humans," Servac explained. "They have recently made contact with the Concordat and established a diplomatic mission on Centauri Station. Our client wants the entire diplomatic team eliminated before they can form any alliances." The assassins studied the images with professional interest but little concern. The creatures looked weak. No natural armor, no claws, unimpressive musculature, and dull teeth that couldn't tear through much. "They don't look like much," said one assassin from the back. Servac's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of caution among his species. "There are rumors about their homeworld. They call it Earth. Some claim it's a death world." The room grew quiet again. Death worlds were mostly considered myths, planets so harsh and deadly that it seemed impossible any intelligent life could evolve there. Most civilized species in the galaxy had evolved on gentle worlds with stable climates, minimal predators, and few natural disasters. "Surely that's exaggerated," Tilara said. "Look at them. They have no defenses." "Perhaps," Servac agreed. "But caution is still warranted. Our client's urgency suggests these humans may be more than they appear." He displayed more images, the human diplomatic team arriving at Centauri Station 2 cycles ago. At the front walked a female human with dark skin and short hair, dressed in formal attire. Behind her were 9 others, some in what appeared to be protective gear. The target is Ambassador Diane Collins and her entire team. The client wants no survivors. Servac assigned roles with practiced efficiency. Tilara would leave the operation with 4 others. They would observe for 3 days, then strike when the humans were most vulnerable. As the meeting ended, one young assassin approached Servac privately. "Master, why such concern over these soft creatures? Even if their world is harsh, they've clearly adapted through artificial means rather than biological strength." Servac touched the young one's shoulder. "Mevran, remember the first rule of our guild. Respect all life before you take it. Underestimation leads to failure." The young assassin nodded reluctantly and left to prepare. Alone in the chamber, Servac reviewed the data again. Something bothered him about these humans. The available information on Earth was limited, but what he found disturbed him. Gravity 30% higher than most civilized worlds. Temperature variations that would kill most species. Atmospheric pressure that would crush the lungs of half the Concordat's members. And the radiation levels from their sun would cause cellular damage to most known species. If these humans truly evolved on such a world, they might be more dangerous than they appeared. "Computer, continue searching for information on planet Earth and human biology," Servac commanded. "Priority level 1. He had a strange feeling about this contract. In his 300 cycles of life, he had never failed a mission. But something told him these humans might be the greatest challenge the Void Shadows had ever faced. Lara crouched in the ventilation shaft above the human quarters on Centauri Station. She had been watching them for 2 full cycles now, studying their patterns and weaknesses. The perfect time to strike would be during their rest period, which they called night, even on a space station with no natural day cycle. Team in position, she whispered into her neural communicator. 4 acknowledgments came back instantly. Her team was spread throughout the station, ready to eliminate all 10 humans simultaneously. Lara would take the leader, Ambassador Collins, herself. She readied the poison injector on her wrist. The toxin was deadlier than anything in the known galaxy. A single drop could kill a creature 10 times her size in seconds. Lara dropped silently into the ambassador's quarters. The human female lay sleeping on a flat surface, wrapped in some kind of fabric. So vulnerable. So easy. Lara moved closer and aimed the injector at the exposed neck. The human's eyes snapped open. What happened next shocked Lara to her core. The ambassador rolled away with speed Lara had never seen in any species except her own. Before Lara could adjust, Collins was on her feet in a defensive stance. "I was wondering when you'd make your move," the ambassador said calmly, as though being attacked in her sleep was a minor inconvenience. Lara lunged, aiming the poison injector again. The human dodged and struck back with surprising force. Pain shot through Lara's arm. Impossible. Her species had evolved on a low-gravity world, giving them superior strength compared to most. Team status. Lara hissed into her communicator while dodging another strike. "Target is awake and fighting back," came the first panicked response. "My target survived the toxin," reported another. "Need backup in Sector 4. All around the station, the carefully planned assassinations were failing. Lara could hardly believe it. The humans were faster, stronger, and more alert than any prey should be. The door to the ambassador's quarters slid open, and a male human entered. Lara recognized him as Zach Powell, one of the security officers. Blood ran down his arm where Lara's teammate must have struck with the poison injector. "You okay, Ambassador?" he asked, seeming unconcerned about his injury. "Fine, Zach. How are you still standing?" "That was Next 9 poison," Collins replied, keeping her eyes on Lara. Powell shrugged. "Burns like hell, but I've had worse hangovers. Kate's got the other one cornered in the mess hall." Lara couldn't process what she was hearing. Next 9 was fatal to every known species. This human should be dead, not standing and making jokes about it. She activated her emergency teleport beacon. This mission was compromised. They needed to retreat and replan. Back at the guild hall, the 5 assassins gathered in Servac's private chamber. Their failure was unprecedented. "Explain," Servac demanded, his voice dangerously quiet. Lara stepped forward. "They knew we were coming. They were prepared. And she struggled to find the words. "They're not normal." Powell took a full dose of Next 9 directly into his bloodstream, and was still fighting. Servac's 4 eyes widened. "Impossible. I saw it myself." And the female named Kate Miller threw Vexenor across a room. "He weighs 3 times what she does." Servac turned to his data terminal, which had been gathering information on Earth. "The computer has found more data on their world. It's worse than we thought." The screen displayed readings that made the assassins step back in shock. "These can't be right," whispered Mevran. "No species could evolve in these conditions." "But they did," Servac said grimly. "Earth is officially classified as a Class 12 death world. The humans evolved alongside thousands of predator species. Their planet regularly experiences disasters that would wipe out civilization on our worlds." He enlarged an image of Earth's gravity and atmospheric composition. They breathe oxygen at concentrations that would be toxic to us. Their bones and muscles developed under crushing gravity. Lara looked at the wound on her arm, where Ambassador Collins had struck her. "They're not just diplomats, are they? No, Turvac said. I believe we've gravely underestimated what it means to be a Deathworlder. We need to learn everything we can about these humans before we try again. As the briefing ended, none of the assassins noticed the small drone floating in the corner of the room, transmitting everything back to Kate Miller's datapad on Centauri Station. Turvac stared at the holographic display of planet Earth, turning it slowly to examine every detail. The more he learned about this world, the more it terrified him. No member of the Void Shadows had ever encountered a species from a true death world before. Play the educational file again, he ordered. The screen shifted to show footage taken from human historical archives. The images showed Earth's natural disasters, massive storms with wind speeds that could strip flesh from bone, waves taller than buildings crashing into coastlines, mountains exploding with molten rock, and huge sections of ground shaking until cities crumbled. And they just lived with this? Mevran asked, his voice barely a whisper. They don't just live with it. They thrive despite it, Tellura said. She had been studying human biology for days now. Look at this. She pulled up medical scans of human anatomy. Their skeleton is internal but incredibly dense. Their muscle tissue can tear and repair itself stronger than before. And their nervous system includes a pain suppression mechanism that activates during danger. Kazurvac nodded. That explains why Powell could function after being poisoned. Their bodies evolved to keep fighting even when damaged. The data continued to paint a frightening picture. Humans could survive temperature ranges that would kill most species. They could go days without water and weeks without food. Their immune systems fought off millions of microscopic attackers daily. What about this thing they call adrenaline? Asked another assassin. Tellura brought up more data. It's a chemical their bodies produce during stress. It increases their strength, speed, and aggression temporarily. They become stronger when attacked. Mevran said in disbelief. That's terrifying. Kshurvac finished for him. Meanwhile, on Centauri Station, Ambassador Collins and her team reviewed the data from their spy drone. They're finally figuring out what they're dealing with, Kate Miller said with a slight smile. She cleaned her pistol as she spoke, her movements precise and practiced. Jason Rivera, the ambassador's assistant, looked up from his datapad. Should we be concerned? They know more about us now. Ambassador Collins shook her head. Knowledge doesn't equal capability. Their biology limits them. They evolved on a world with 1/3 our gravity and no predators. Their bones are light, their muscles weak by our standards. Still, Dr. Alan Garcia said, as he treated the wound on Zach Powell's arm, they're extremely intelligent, and that poison would have killed most humans. Powell winced as the doctor applied a regenerative gel to his wound. Good thing I spent those years building up immunity to various toxins when I worked border security. Lisa Ortiz entered the room, carrying fresh data. Ambassador, I've got the files on the client who hired the Void Shadows. Tell me, Collins said. The transmission originated from the edge of Harvester territory. It seems they don't want our alliance with the Concordat to proceed. Eric Summers, the security team lead, stood up straight. The Harvesters. I thought they were just rumors. Very real, Collins replied. And very dangerous. They've been picking off outer colonies for decades. They consume everything on a planet before moving to the next. And they're afraid of us, Kate said. That's interesting. Back in the Void Shadows Guild Hall, Turvac made a decision. We need more information. Tellura, I want you to attend the diplomatic reception tomorrow. The humans are holding an event to showcase their culture to the Concordat representatives. You want me to attack them in public? Tellura asked, surprised. No. I want you to observe. Learn. We need to understand not just their physical capabilities, but how they think. Tellura nodded. The mission had become about more than just the contract. The existence of humans changed everything the assassins thought they knew about life in the galaxy. As she prepared for her infiltration, Tilara couldn't shake the feeling that the humans already knew she would be there. These Deathworlders were proving to be the most dangerous prey the Void Shadows had ever hunted. The Grand Hall of Centauri Station gleamed with decorative lights as representatives from 12 species mingled at the human cultural reception. Tilara moved through the crowd in disguise, her skin color altered to match the blue-green shade of the Melnax traders. No one gave her a second glance. She spotted Ambassador Collins at the center of the room, speaking with the Concordat's High Minister. The human woman wore formal attire and smiled warmly as she talked. She looked so harmless now, nothing like the fighter who had broken Tilara's arm 3 days ago. Earth's atmosphere contains oxygen at levels that would be toxic to many of your species, Collins was explaining. Our bodies evolved to use it as fuel for our cells. The High Minister's eye stalks waved in fascination. And these natural disasters you described, your people simply rebuild afterward. We adapt, Collins said. Humans have always faced challenges. It's shaped who we are. Tilara moved closer, pretending to examine a display of Earth artifacts. There were images of human cities built near active volcanoes, homes constructed to withstand hurricane-force winds, and underwater settlements that could rise and fall with tsunami waves. Nearby, the human security officer Eric Summers was entertaining a group of Concordat military officials with stories about Earth's predators. Great white sharks can smell a drop of blood from miles away, he said. Lions can bring down prey 3 times their size. But the most successful predator on Earth is actually tiny. The dragonfly. It catches its target 95% of the time. The officials looked impressed but confused. Why study these creatures if they're so dangerous? To learn from them, Summers said simply. The best way to survive is to understand. Tilara found his words disturbing. These humans didn't just endure their deadly world. They studied it, learned from it, and used that knowledge. Suddenly, the station's alarms blared. The lights shifted to emergency red. Breach in Section 12. A station officer shouted. Unknown hostiles. Tilara watched in amazement as the human delegation transformed. Their friendly, diplomatic demeanor vanished, replaced by focused alertness. They moved with perfect coordination, securing exits and checking weapons that had been concealed under their formal wear. Looks like your friends decided not to wait for your report, Ambassador Collins said, suddenly beside Tilara. The human's eyes were hard as stone. Tilara froze. How did you? Your disguise is good, but your movement patterns give you away. Plus, we've been tracking your biosignature since you arrived. Collins tapped her earpiece. Kate, status. 5 assassins with advanced weaponry. Kate Miller's voice replied through the ambassador's comm. Not Void Shadows. Different group. Heavily armed. Tilara was confused. Not her guild. Who else would attack the humans? The answer came moments later as 5 figures in glossy black armor burst into the hall. They carried plasma rifles unlike anything Tilara had seen. The crowd scattered in panic as the attackers opened fire. Eric Summers moved with shocking speed. He grabbed a decorative metal tray and hurled it across the room. The improvised weapon struck one attacker's weapon, knocking it off target. The plasma blast hit the ceiling instead of the Concordat minister. Tilara watched in disbelief as the human security team engaged the armored attackers. Kate Miller dodged energy beams that should have been impossible to avoid. Her reflexes beyond anything Tilara had seen in her centuries as an assassin. Even more shocking was Zach Powell. Still recovering from the poison, he tackled one attacker with such force that both crashed through a reinforced wall panel. Who are they? Tilara asked, finding herself pressed against a wall beside Ambassador Collins, who had drawn a small weapon. Harvester Advance Team. Collins replied, firing with precision at an attacker. They want to stop this alliance at any cost. The battle lasted less than 2 minutes. When it ended, all 5 attackers were down, and the humans stood victorious. They were breathing hard, some bleeding from wounds, but none had fallen. Tilara had seen enough. These Deathworlders weren't just physically superior. They were warriors unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. T. Lara knelt before Exurvac in the guild hall, her report complete. The chamber was silent as the guild master processed what he had just heard. "You're certain these were Harvester agents?" Exurvac finally asked. "Yes." Ambassador Collins identified them immediately. The humans knew they were coming. Sirvac's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, and the humans defeated 5 armed harvesters without losses. T. Lara nodded. Their reaction time was unnatural. They moved like they were expecting the attack, and their physical capabilities. She paused, remembering Powell smashing through the wall panel. "I've never seen anything like it." Mevran, who had been listening from the side, stepped forward. "Master, I've discovered something else about humans. They call it adrenaline rush, a survival mechanism that activates in danger." He displayed new data on the screen. When threatened, their bodies flood with chemicals that increase strength, speed, and pain tolerance. Some records suggest humans can temporarily lift objects 3 times their normal capacity under this influence. "So they become stronger when we attack them?" another assassin asked. "Essentially, yes," Mevran confirmed. Exurvac rose from his seat and walked to the data terminal. "Our client lied to us. The Harvesters didn't hire us to eliminate a simple diplomatic team. They hired us to test the humans' capabilities. We've been used," T. Lara realized. "Indeed." Exurvac's voice hardened. "And now I understand why. Look at this." He displayed a star chart showing Harvester territory and recent expansion. The Harvesters consume worlds. They'd been moving through the outer systems for decades. But here, he pointed to a section of space. They suddenly changed direction 3 cycles ago. "What's there?" T. Lara asked. "Nothing of value, but it's the direction from which the humans first approached Concordat space. The implications were clear. The Harvesters feared humans enough to avoid their sector entirely." Meanwhile, in the medical bay of Centauri Station, Dr. Alan Garcia treated a wounded Concordat minister. The alien watched with fascination as the doctor worked. "Your hands are so steady," the minister said. "Most species would be shaking after such violence." Dr. Garcia smiled gently. "On Earth, doctors work through earthquakes, hurricanes, even war zones. We learn to stay calm." Nearby, Ambassador Collins met with the Concordat's High Council in emergency session. The attack had changed everything. "We were hoping for a more peaceful introduction," Collins said, "but now you've seen what we face. The Harvesters have been consuming worlds for generations. Earth's long-range scouts detected their pattern years ago." "Why would they fear humans?" asked one council member. "Because we evolved to survive threats, including apex predators," Collins explained. "The Harvesters are predators themselves. They recognize another predator species when they see one." In another section of the station, Kate Miller and Eric Summers interrogated one of the captured Harvester agents. The creature's exoskeleton gleamed under the bright lights. "Why attack a diplomatic reception?" Summers demanded. "You killed 3 Concordat civilians." The Harvester remained silent until Kate slammed her hand on the table. The creature flinched. "You move wrong," it finally said in broken Concordat standard. "Too fast. Too strong. Not natural." "We're perfectly natural," Kate replied. "Just not from your kind of world." Back in the Void Shadows Guild Hall, Sirvac made a decision that would break thousands of years of guild tradition. "We're withdrawing from the contract," he announced. T. Lara was shocked. "Master, we've never abandoned a contract in the guild's history. We've never faced Deathworlders before," Sirvac replied. "The Harvesters used us. They wanted to learn about human capabilities without risking their main forces." He looked at the gathered assassins. "More importantly, I believe the humans may be the only defense against what's coming. The Harvesters won't stop with outer colonies. They'll consume everything." Hilara stood, her decision made. I wish to make contact with the humans, not as an assassin, but as an ally. Sirvak nodded slowly. Be careful, Tilara. These humans are dangerous beyond measure. But they may be the galaxy's only hope. Ambassador Collins stared at the alien assassin standing before her in the secure meeting room. 2 days ago, Tilara had tried to kill her. Now she was offering an alliance. Why should I trust you? Collins asked, her voice calm but firm. Kate Miller stood nearby, her hand resting on her weapon. Eric Summers watched from the corner, his eyes never leaving Tilara. You shouldn't, Tilara replied honestly. But the Harvesters are the greater threat. They've consumed 23 worlds in the past cycle. Your world would be next if they weren't afraid of you. Afraid of us? Jason Rivera asked from his position beside the ambassador. Tilara nodded. The Harvesters avoid predator species. Most intelligent life in the galaxy evolved as prey. Their worlds were gentle, their threats minimal. But humans, she paused. You evolved alongside predators. You became predators yourselves when needed. Collins considered this. We're omnivores, not pure predators. We can be either. That's what makes you more dangerous, Tilara said. You can think like prey or predator. You understand both. The door opened, and Dr. Garcia entered with a datapad. Ambassador, I completed the analysis of the harvester physiology. They're a hive-based species with specialized roles. The ones that attacked us were soldier class. He displayed images of the harvester's internal structure. Their communication system is chemical-based. They share information through pheromone exchanges. Tilara leaned forward with interest. This is new information. The Void Shadows have never captured a live harvester before. We didn't just capture one, Kate said with a slight smile. We interrogated it. Meanwhile, in deep space, a massive harvester vessel approached the edge of Concordat territory. Inside its control chamber, the Harvester Queen communicated with her advisors through chemical signals. The Deathworlders have made contact with the Concordat, one advisor reported. They know of our presence. The Queen's massive form shifted. The prey species are weak. They will fall as they always do. But these humans, her chemical signals conveyed deep concern. They evolved on a Class 12 world. Their threat level is maximum. The Assassin Guild failed to eliminate them, another advisor noted. As expected, the Queen replied, we needed to understand their capabilities. Now we know they are as dangerous as we feared. We must accelerate our plans. Back on Centauri Station, the human team reviewed the information Tilara had brought about the Void Shadows contract. So the Harvesters paid the assassins to test us, Zach Powell said, still looking somewhat pale from the lingering effects of the poison. Tilara nodded. They wanted to assess your threat level without engaging directly. When we failed, they sent their own agents. And they'll send more, Lisa Ortiz added. She had been analyzing communication patterns around the station. I've detected unusual signal traffic at the edge of the system. Something big is coming. Ambassador Collins turned to Tilara. If what you're saying is true, we need to prepare the Concordat for war. Many of their species have never faced this kind of threat. They haven't, Tilara confirmed. Most evolved on peaceful worlds with stable environments. Their bodies and minds aren't built for conflict like yours are. Then we'll have to show them how to fight, Eric Summers said firmly. Tilara studied the humans with new eyes. When she had first seen images of them, she thought they looked weak and soft. Now she understood that their unassuming appearance was perhaps their greatest advantage. Nothing in their physical form hinted at the incredible durability and adaptability that lay beneath. There's something else you should know, Tilara said. Hexervac, our guildmaster, has called a full assembly of the Void Shadows. For the first time in our 1,000-year history, we're considering breaking a contract. Why would he do that? Collins asked. Because he believes the humans are the only species capable of stopping the harvesters, Tilara replied. And because he's afraid of you. The humans exchanged glances. They had never wanted to bring war to the Concordat, but it seemed war had found them anyway. Earth had prepared them for this moment, through millions of years of evolution on a world that tried to kill them every day. The Deathworlders were ready. The main council chamber of Centauri Station was filled beyond capacity. Representatives from all 12 Concordat species sat in nervous silence as Ambassador Collins stood at the center. Beside her stood T. Lara and 3 other members of the Void Shadows who had defected to the human side. The Harvester fleet will reach this station in less than 6 days, Collins announced. They have never been stopped before, but they have also never faced humans before. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Many had witnessed the humans' abilities during the attack at the reception, but fear still dominated the room. How can we possibly defend against them? Asked the Melnax trade minister. Our species are not warriors. We have limited weapons, limited training. Collins nodded in understanding. We don't expect you to fight like humans. We each have different strengths. She gestured to Ben Cooper, the human engineer who had been quiet until now. He stepped forward with a data display. This is how humans survived Earth, Cooper said, not just with physical strength, but with adaptation and technology. He showed designs for modified shield generators, emergency response systems, and evacuation protocols. Your species built beautiful technology for peaceful purposes. We can adapt it for defense. The Concordat representatives looked at the designs with growing interest. The humans weren't asking them to become warriors. They were showing them how to use their existing strengths in new ways. Meanwhile, on the human vessel USC Defiance that had just arrived in the system, Captain Olivia Martinez briefed her crew. The ship wasn't large by Concordat standards, but it contained technology specifically designed for fighting in space. The Harvesters have never faced weapons designed by Deathworlders, Martinez told her crew. Earth's history of warfare has prepared us for this moment. One of the crew asked, Captain, is it true the Void Shadows assassins are now working with us? Martinez nodded. 4 of their best have joined our side, including their top operative, T. Lara. They've provided valuable intelligence on Harvester weaknesses. Back in the Void Shadows Guild Hall, Servac faced growing dissent. Half of his assassins wanted to honor the contract with the Harvesters. The other half, led by Mevran, argued for supporting the humans. The contract is sacred, argued one elder assassin. We have never broken our word. And we have never faced extinction before, Mevran countered. The Harvesters won't stop with the Concordat. Eventually, they will come for us too. Zervac raised his hand for silence. I have made my decision. The Void Shadows will stand with the humans. There were gasps and protests, but Zervac continued, I have studied Earth's history. These humans have fought thousands of wars against each other. They've developed tactics and strategies we cannot imagine because our worlds never demanded such things. He displayed footage of human special forces training exercises. They prepare for battle through practice. They create problems for themselves to solve. They think 14 steps ahead. The guild members watched in silence as humans ran combat drills, moved through obstacle courses, and practiced with weapons. Even on their own planet, humans created artificial challenges to overcome. On Centauri Station, T. Lara watched Kate Miller and Eric Summers train a group of Concordat security officers. The aliens were struggling to keep up with the pace. Don't worry about matching our speed, Kate was saying. Focus on using your natural abilities. The Trexians have excellent vision. You'll be our spotters. The Melnax have multiple limbs. You'll handle complex equipment. Lara approached Ambassador Collins, who was reviewing defense plans. Your people are natural teachers, she observed. Collins looked up. On Earth, we had to pass knowledge quickly to survive. Teaching others became instinctive. The other assassins want to know why you trust me, T. Lara said quietly. After I tried to kill you. Collins smiled slightly. Another human adaptation. We recognize when former enemies can become valuable allies. As the station prepared for war, the humans continued to surprise their new allies. They didn't sleep much. They worked tirelessly. And strangest of all to T-Lara, they remained hopeful in the face of overwhelming odds. Perhaps that, she thought, was the most powerful adaptation of all. The Harvester fleet appeared at the edge of the Centauri system, like a dark cloud blotting out the stars. 50 massive ships, each carrying thousands of soldier-class harvesters, moved toward the station with steady purpose. On the bridge of the USC Defiance, Captain Olivia Martinez watched the enemy approach. Her ship, though small compared to the harvester vessels, stood ready alongside a hastily assembled defense fleet. "They're following the exact pattern we predicted," she said to her tactical officer. "The harvesters have never needed to change their strategy before. They've never faced real resistance." Across the comms, Ambassador Collins' voice came through. "All Concordat ships, remember your positions. Follow the humans' lead." Inside Centauri Station, Collins stood in the command center with T-Lara and Exervac at her side. The Void Shadows Guildmaster had arrived with 30 of his best assassins just hours before. "The Queen will be on the center vessel," Tervac said, pointing to the largest harvester ship. "She never expected to fight. She only comes to consume." T-Lara checked her weapons nervously. "I've killed many beings, but never fought in a war before." Kate Miller smiled grimly. "Humans have fought wars since we could pick up sticks. Trust us on this." Outside, the harvester ships launched their first wave of attack vessels. Thousands of small, fast ships swarmed toward the station and defense fleet. "Now," ordered Captain Martinez. The USC Defiance fired what appeared to be a simple projectile. It detonated in the middle of the harvester swarm, releasing an electromagnetic pulse that disabled hundreds of ships instantly. "EMP successful," Martins reported. "Phase 2, begin." The Concordat ships moved in precise formation, using tactics the humans had taught them over the past week. Each species used their natural advantages: the quick reflexes of the Traxians, the mathematical precision of the Keldari, the multitasking abilities of the Melnax. On the main harvester ship, the Queen raged as her first wave faltered. "Impossible. How are these prey fighting back?" Her advisors had no answers. Nothing in their experience had prepared them for enemies who could anticipate their moves and counter them effectively. "The Deathworlders taught them," one advisor finally said. "The humans have altered the equation." Meanwhile, inside Centauri Station, Zach Powell and Eric Summers led a team of mixed humans and aliens to repel harvester boarding parties. The humans moved with practiced efficiency, their bodies functioning at peak capacity under stress. The aliens fought alongside them, following the strategies they had been taught. T-Lara killed 3 harvesters in quick succession, using techniques she had learned from Kate Miller. "They're not adapting," she called out. "They keep using the same attack pattern." "That's their weakness," Powell replied as he fired his weapon. "They evolved as a hive. They never needed to adapt quickly as individuals." In space, the battle continued. The USC Defiance took heavy damage, but kept fighting. Captain Martins directed her ship directly toward the Queen's vessel. "All power to forward shields," she ordered. "Prepare the boarding teams." The human ship smashed through the harvester vessel's outer defenses, creating an opening for Special Forces teams to enter. Among them were Ben Cooper and Dr. Alan Garcia, bringing a specially designed bioweapon that would affect only the Queen's pheromone system. As the battle reached its peak, Ambassador Collins sent a message to all Concordat ships. "This is humanity's gift to the galaxy. Not just our strength, but our knowledge of how to fight when the odds seem impossible." The Harvester Queen felt something she had never experienced before as human soldiers breached her chamber: fear. For millennia, her species had consumed worlds without resistance. Now she faced creatures who had evolved on a planet that tried to kill them daily, who had fought countless wars among themselves, who had learned to survive against all odds. "What are you?" she asked as the humans approached. Captain Martinez, leading the assault team, answered simply, "We're humans. We come from Earth. And we're here to stay." 3 hours later, the battle was over. The Harvester fleet was in retreat, their queen captured, their forces scattered. The Concordat had survived, protected by the Deathworlders who had taught them how to fight. As the cleanup began, T. Lara found Servac staring out a viewport at the damaged but victorious human ship. "I understand now," the Guildmaster said quietly. "Why even the most feared assassins flee when Deathworlders show up. It's not just their strength. It's because they've mastered something we never had to learn." "What's that?" T. Lara asked. "How to face impossible odds and still believe they can win."